Are they both on now, and can you hear me? How's the sound? Maybe I'll put it on a little higher. You can hear? Okay. So come, let's get started. Is it okay now? The sound is all right? Good, Baruch Hashem. Oh, I got a kiss. Mwah. Mwah. Okay. Now, see, you don't get that with the men who are teaching for BRI. Sending back kisses. Let's see. Okay, let me put everything in place and we can get started. So we have already done chapter 16, 32, 41, and 42, and now we are halfway. Today is our halfway point. Not exactly in the course because we have one more week after this, but halfway point into TIKKUN HAKLALI. We're in chapter 59. And it's not too long a chapter. It's manageable. Baruch Hashem, they should all be manageable. The 105 we're going to split, but other than that, we should be okay. And which anyway, we'll see that 105 should be split in any case. So we're in chapter 59. So for those of you who are using your own book of Tehillim, please open it. And if not, then we have here the chapter without any commentary. Now, before we get started, we need to look. We have a few things to look at. I'm just trying to think about what makes the most sense. I think we'll do it from this end. So we're going back now to, like, we try to understand what is the nature of this spiritual song that is unique and different from the others. Even though Rabbi Nachman doesn't give us so much guidance, he does offer us some hints. And we also have the advantage of having access to the Paparot L'Chochma, one of the main commentaries on the Likutei Moharan, perhaps the main, actually, and in terms of accessibility at least. And we have some hints, in there, but they're not very extensive, so we sort of have to use our minds and use our hearts and think it through to try and figure out what's being accomplished here. And of course, part of it remains ever a mystery to us, what the therapeutic value is spiritually of each of these kinds of songs. They certainly have spiritually therapeutic value. The only question is, how much can we be aware of it? And do we really even need to? It's an interesting question. A medication, a physical medication works whether you know how the medication works or doesn't. So we can assume that whether or not a person has a great and deep understanding of the therapeutic nature of each of these chapters of Tehillim, presumably they do the work that they need to do, even in the absence of having a deep understanding of the mechanism of how they're working. So we have good reliance on the doctor and the doctor of the spirit, and assume that it's doing the work that it needs to do, whether or not we're able to make the deep connections and think it through. It's nice to examine and it's nice to check and try and understand it to the best of our ability, but the therapeutic value does not lie in our understanding it any more than the therapeutic value of your antibiotic works on you knowing how antibiotics work. So just a side point, or not so side point. So let's look and see what's going on here. Now in our, in Likutei Moharan 92, it's also in 205, but let's say 92, one second, which we've been referring to again and again, where we have this sort of list of sources about TIKKUN HAKLALI. So, one second. Yeah, so in 92, Rabbi Nachman just provides us with, sorry about that, what's the opening, what's the verse, and what's the type of song. So we learn in 92, in lesson 92, that it's nitzuach. Now, if we look at the structure of our chapter itself, so that's fairly easy, right? In chapter 59, we have the opening word is Lam Natzeach al Tashchet LeDavid Michtam Bishloch Shaul V'Yishmur Et Habayit Lamito. Now, Lam Natzeach is the opening term. And so this is one of those times where we have right away at the beginning the signal word. Now the signal word is indicative of, let's use the black here, Nitzuach is actually the type of song. Now the way we normally understand, sorry for my kind of sticky way of writing with my right finger on a touchpad. Oh, I said I wanted to switch over to using my drawing pad. Sorry. So let's see. What is this word all about? Nitzuach. Well, we have here a three-letter root. That's netzach. Now, netzach in Hebrew implies a whole bunch of different things. The first is that we have the idea of victory. Lenatzeach in Hebrew means to be victorious. And it doesn't only mean a temporary victory or a small victory. It means a long-term victory because it also comes from the three-letter root of netzach, which means permanence or eternity. So it means victory that implies not just a temporal victory, but also a spiritual victory that has longevity. So we call that nitzuach. Now, what's interesting is that in Hebrew, we also have a relationship between tzaddik and another sound, which has two different manifestations. We have nesach, right? Nisuach. That should be a chaf at the end. Sorry for my messy. It's so terrible that I'm trying to do this with my right finger on a touchpad. We have nun samech chaf, sorry, and nun samech chet. Okay, so these are also related roots because in Hebrew we have 5 different areas. This is very important for understanding anything more deeply in Hebrew language, is to know, like Rashi brings down in a very famous comment in Parshat Kedoshim, that we have 5 motzaot hapeh. We have 5 different areas of formation of the sounds of consonants in the mouth. Anyone who's ever taken a linguistics class knows that we have not the vowel sounds, but the consonant sounds have 5 major points of origin. They are the lips, the teeth, the tongue, the palate, and the throat. If you just paid attention to what I just did, I just went from the outside and moved back, right? Lips, teeth, tongue, palate, throat. So those are our 5 regions that produce consonant sounds. We're not, Xhosa people of the southern part of Africa who also speak with clicks and so on. These are our consonant sounds. 22 letters, 22 consonants of the Hebrew alphabet are expressed through 5 different areas of the mouth and the throat. Now, what happens is that those 22 letters, because they have different points of origin, it means that in understanding deeper relationships between concepts in Hebrew, and this is something that will come up again and again, so there's no harm in not explaining it now, because in the language of Tehillim it comes up all the time, so it's important. This is a good opportunity to just get the idea across. Now we have here all of the sounds, consonant sounds, that emerge from the same point of origin. There are 5 of them. So all of those consonant sounds have conceptual relationships with each other when they appear in the roots of Hebrew words. And so it's not wordplay. When you open up, let's say, Rav Hirsch's commentary on Chumash, on the Torah, and he starts flipping letters in and out of words and saying this is related to this concept and that's related to that concept. He's not playing games with us. He's showing us the deeper roots of Hebrew, which is that these 5 points of origins, their consonant sounds, have, on a spiritual level, a deep relationship with each other. And so the variance between them wind up showing us another aspect or another dimension of a Hebrew root. We're able to see it when we make exchanges. Now, sometimes it's very clear and sometimes it's less clear, but I'm just going to show you now using the word because it's important for us right now, lamnatzeach or nitzuach. Now, we said already in terms of when the way we normally read this word lamnatzeach, wherever it appears at the beginning of a chapter of Tehillim, in the entire book of Tehillim, not just in TIKKUN HAKLALI. So when we see this word, it's usually translated, if you have it translated Tehillim, as to the choir master. The menatzeach is called the choir master. Now Rav Hirsch is more sophisticated than that, so he always translates the word lamnatzeach as to he who grants victory, which is actually very much more accurate. The menatzeach is the one who grants victory, and he means this, the way he translates it, is the one, and it's based on the Medrash. I mean, he's not bringing it out, on his own. The Menatzeach is to Hashem. This psalm is offered to Hashem, to God, the one who grants victory, and that's called Menatzeach because it's a causative verb. The verb form is causative. The Menatzeach is not the one who achieves victory, but the one who grants it. So, which is very interesting because in this chapter we're going to find, like in most of our Lamanatzeachs, David HaMelech has not quite achieved victory. Very often, he's still in the throes of the conflict. He's still caught in the soup, and he desperately needs to attain victory. So that also makes sense, meaning it's not celebratory, it's an appeal to the one who grants the victory because he's desperately in need of a victory. Now, that's usually the way we understand the first word or the opening word of Lamnatziach, wherever it might appear in Tehillim. When it comes to its correlation, meaning let's take this word, Lamnatziach, in the way it's usually understood, and bring it over here to see Nitzuach, we said, meant victory of a permanent or eternal nature. And then we have to look at where that tzaddik sound, where it has relationships conceptually with its companion sounds called nesach and nesach. Now, what's the difference between the root, the three-letter root, nun samech chaf or nun samech chet? What's the difference between the two of them? So, nesach with the chaf at the end implies a pouring out, right? In Hebrew, sach is like melting or making something molten. Elohim masecha al tasu lachem. So you're not allowed to make molten gods for yourself. So it implies something that's been liquefied and poured out. So let's bear that in mind. And then we go over to nesach with the chet at the end, which would be familiar for those who are knowledgeable about their nusach hatfilah. You pray Nusach Ashkenaz, Nusach Sfard, Nusach Arizal, if you pray with the Chabad Sidur. So we have Nuschaot. A Nusach in Hebrew means a formulation of text for a particular purpose. That's called its Nusach. And we can see how all of these are related because the pouring out of language, the flow of language smoothly, eloquently, is called your Nusach. That's your text form. So imagine it like words that pour out and then form into some kind of a whole. It sort of congeals or comes together or hardens eventually into a kind of whole that afterwards is used as a weapon or as a tool to be able to appeal. That's called the Lamanatzeach, the choir master. It's incorporated into prayerful musical prayer, in which dedicated to the one who grants victory. That's the Lamanatzeach as translated, as rendered by Rev Hirsch, in order for the one who's making the appeal to achieve a permanent victory. Okay, so we have here kind of like 5 different ways of understanding this root of netzach, nesach, in the context of starting a new chapter of Tehillim. So, Rabbi Nachman tells us the form of song, the spiritual song that is embodied in best embodied in chapter 59, is nitzuach. Nitzuach in the sense of heartfelt prayer that is poured out and attains a kind of solid form in order to appeal to the one who grants victory so that you can be victorious. So we see that it's the prayer that is offered in process while still in trouble, which is very much the theme of this chapter. David HaMelech crying out to Hashem in a state of deep, he's in it, and he needed a miracle on the spot in order to be saved. And in fact, his miracle was granted via the agency of his wife in this particular circumstance. And it was a confluence. The way that he was saved was really through a convergence of a number of unexpected, unexpected human choices, which contributed altogether, the fullness of the picture contributed to his release from a state of great danger. So when we see this as part of, like we're saying this as part of TIKKUN HAKLALI, Lamnatzeach al tashchet leDavid michtam is a deep cry from the place of trouble and feeling the pressures of hashchata. Now, the implication is also, as it's brought down, let's look at our Parparot Lechochma. Let's go back. So we have our Parparot Lechochma here. Now, he brings the language that's in the actual lesson in 92. Le'inyan nitzuach ne'emar lamnatzeach al tashchet. So far, that's really what's in the chapter in the Kutei Moharan. Rabbi Nachman's hint about what's going on here, he says, and as regards the prayer song or the soul expressive mode called nitzuach, so we have chapter 59, which begins lamnatzeach al tashchet. Now, al here, important for us to realize, is not al with an ayin upon tashchet, but rather al. It's an aleph, and it's a negating word, and it means no tashchet. Okay, that there should be no destruction. Now, hainu. Now, I'm going to talk about in a minute about the historical circumstances of the chapter, which are very important for us to know, because to understand what we're saying, it's important to be able to really be familiar with the context in which David found himself, so that which prompted his expression, this prayer expression in the first place. But in terms of our personal prayers, so we're not in the same situation that he was in at that time. Obviously, it would be rare to be in such a circumstance, thank God, because it was very dangerous. But for us, the feeling of being beset is unfortunately common enough. And so the spiritual expression of nitzuach is necessary for us to tap into, because we often find ourselves in circumstances where we feel, and maybe even are, genuinely beset by spiritual obstacles and enemies that are out to get us, and so we need help and protection immediately. And so this chapter expresses this kind of desperate plea for an immediate salvation. Now, the idea of al tashchet at the very beginning, in terms of its historical context, is that David really needed to be saved from the hands of the agents of Shaul, and at the same time, he did not, and this language of al tashchet comes up a few times in Tehillim, he really did not want to be responsible for causing anybody any harm. He just wanted to save himself. He did not want to be responsible for any harm coming to others. So al tashchet can be read in two different ways. It can be read as, most simply as, save me Hashem from destruction, I shouldn't be destroyed. And on the other hand, it can also be read as, save me Hashem from doing any act of destruction. I don't want to be responsible for destroying anybody else in an effort to save myself. And so we see it in both ways, and it's going to have relevance in the way we read it personally. Now, the Parparos L'Chachma, of course, his goal is to show us how because from the beginning, from our first introductory lesson, we spoke about this idea that TIKKUN HAKLALI is both a TIKKUN HAKLALI, it's a general spiritual remedy, but it really was revealed by Rabbi Nachman as a specific remedy also for sexual impurity, which is a result of a feeling of disconnection from Hashem. And so it's manifestation of ta'ava yivakesh nifrad, that desire chases after the person who feels isolated or alienated, is really supposed to address, our Tikkun HaKlali is meant to address in a general way and also a specific way, the alienation of the spirit that leads to negative manifestations in our lives, especially in the area of personal purity. That is definitely a big part of Tikkun HaKlali. Now, what the Parparot L'Chachma is trying to tell us is that in all of these chapters, we also have associations between the specific song mode of the chapter of Tehillim, and a particular aspect as it relates to personal purity. So when it says al tashchet, let there not be shachat, right? Shachat means destruction. Hainu ki hapagam hanal. When we talk about sexual impurity, hu bechinat, it is related to, like it says in Parshat Noach, ki hishchit kol basar et darko. The Torah tells us that at the time before the flood, all creatures had been mashchit their way. That means to say that creatures, not only human beings, but also the corruption of the moral fabric of the universe had so frayed had become so strong, and the moral fabric of creation had come to pieces, and so it meant that animals were mating outside of their own species, and that was considered to be a symptom of the fact that human beings had fallen into such a very bad state spiritually. It had its effect on the natural world also. So when it says hishchit kol basar darko, if you look at Rashi there, it really means that even the animals were not maintaining their allegiance to their own species because human beings had fallen into such a sorry state. So we understand that in that pasuk, sexual corruption is called hashchata, is called destructiveness. V'ne'emar, it says also in Lamed Chet, v'shichat arza, which also implies a kind of a falling downward into bad places. So we have two different proof texts that are brought by the Parpot L'Chochma to help us understand that even if we look at it from the perspective, just from the perspective of this being a specific, not a general remedy, but a specific remedy for the for sexual impurity, so that's something that we can see from the language as well. Now we go back to our chapter 59, and now we can begin. Now, just to understand more the historical context, so you can open up chapters. I'm not going to do it now, but I highly recommend if you really want to understand what's going on around here. So you're going to open up the first book of Shmuel and go to chapters 19 until 21. And when you open up in there, you're going to see kind of the whole story laid out in front of you of what happened. But just to give it in a nutshell, now the chapters 57, 58, and 59 in Tehillim were all offered and all sung by David at different points during this very critical juncture of his life, where he kind of began his life as a fugitive. And so even though this event really took place, if we look straightforwardly, so Nun Zayin, chapter 57. I'm sorry, I have something opened up here. Okay, chapter 57. One second. Here is also a Lam Natzech al Tashchet, and this was written B'varcho mipnei Shaul b'Me'ara, and then, oh, looks like it froze. Why did it freeze? Can you hear me? Can you see, or it disappeared? Is it frozen on your end? It's very delicate today. Terrible. Sorry, a notice went up that I have something scheduled soon, and it just caused the whole thing to go haywire. Can you hear me? Can you see me? Are we all right? Yes? Okay, good. So I don't know where it cut out. I was talking, you already heard me open up to 57, to chapter 57? Yes? Oh, 1 second. I totally forgot, and I'm going to interrupt right now. This class was supposed to be dedicated. Maybe that's why I had the notice go up. This class is dedicated. We have a dedication for the shiur as a schus for the refuah and Yeshua of, 1 second, of Aryeh Mordechai ben Sari Imenu. He should have good health, refuah nefesh, refuah guf, and everything good. B'soch shal chol Yisrael. Okay, so please forgive me for not having announced it earlier, but it's a good thing I remembered now. Okay, so are we back on and everyone's with me? Yes? All right. Now, okay, so we have chapter 57, 58, and 59 are kind of a single piece in terms of the historical events, but it's interesting that Sofrim tells us that really the events of 59 took place before the events of 57 and 58. If you open up those chapters in the book of Shmuel, in book 1, 19 until 21, you'll see the basic course of events. Now, what happened was after the killing of Goliath, after David had killed Goliath. So his name started to become much more known, and people started to speak of him and to think of him as perhaps a future leader, and he already was showing a lot of leadership qualities on the battlefield. And he started to present to Shaul, which was really a kind of insane. It became a kind of insane and obsessive jealousy and paranoia that Shaul had about David. But at the beginning, he very much treasured David. But at the beginning of the breakdown of the relationship was really that he would draw him close, and then he would be hostile and even dangerous to him. So we see from chapter 19 and so on around there, we see that David was with Shaul and he was playing music for him, and then Shaul had a fit upon him and he tried to kill him through a spear. David barely escaped it with his life, managed to run to his home. And he gets to his home and he goes up, meaning the house, the setup that we understand is that the house was a kind of two-story affair, where there was a living space down below and then a sleeping space up above. Let's not imagine any big grandiose place, but kind of very simple dwelling with a sleeping loft above with windows, or some apertures up in the upper part. So we imagine. So David comes in. He comes home to his wife. His wife is Michal, the daughter of the king, and Shaul has sent his emissaries to keep an eye on David and make sure that he's not escaping anywhere, because just as he had decided he wanted to kill him, he has decided he's going to kill him. And so even though he has escaped, it's only for the moment, and he's going to fetch him and bring him back to the palace to be killed. Now, the question that we have is, why not kill him on the spot? Meaning if Shaul has many agents at his disposal, we would assume that he could just send in his agents. They break down the door, they take David, either remove him forcibly from the house or kill him on the spot. Why go through the trouble of keeping watch over him all night long in order to take him off and bring him in for his execution in the morning? So the question that we have there is answered by several different sources, and we have only suppositions about what might have motivated Shaul. One motivation might have been because he didn't want to cause his daughter the trauma of being present when he was killed, and so, or even being abducted. So he just wanted to leave watch on the house, wait until he leaves in the morning to go out to pray, to go out to do whatever he needs to do. And at that point, she won't be a witness to a violent altercation between David and Shaul's men. So that's one good supposition, meaning either outright killing or abducting him from the house directly was not something that Shaul would have wanted, not for David's sake, but for his own daughter Michal's sake. But we see that, just as I said at the beginning, David, when he's praying for salvation, so the kinds of intervention that the forms that the intervention took to save his life were not miraculous in the sense of being, some kind of supernatural event, but rather that different decisions were made, which when you stack them all up and put them together, left space for David to be able to escape. Now we have, so Shaul sent his henchmen, his guards, to go and keep watch on the house. And so the repeating image that we have from the chapter is that David is beset or besieged by these agents of Shaul who keep surrounding the house, because they're running watches, and so they keep surrounding the house, and we have this image of David up in the upper chamber, kind of peeking out. I always imagine him kind of peeking out through beyond the curtain. He's kind of looking in from a dark room down into the street, and he sees them doing another lap around the house, another turn around the house, and each time they start coming, he's like keeping an eye on them, and at the same time praying at the window, looking for his opening. When will I be able to escape? So there's just to set the scene for you. Now, in 57 and 58, the chapters 57 and 58 in Tehillim are actually describing the further adventures of David, meaning after this took place and he escaped. Where did he go afterwards? Well, he went to Shmuel HaNavi to ask him advice, and then he went to Nov, and he first went to the desert, and then he wound up in Nov, and he met up with Yehonatan. We have a whole bunch of events that are described in those chapters in Sefer Shmuel, in the book of Shmuel, and here is kind of the other eye on those chapters, because we have the historical events as they take place, and then we have Tehillim telling us about the prayer events that are the parallels for the historical events. So instead of just knowing what happened, we see in Tehillim what David was, where he was in his heart and what he was doing in his spirit while he was under the kind of pressure that's described in the book of Shmuel. So here we are, now that I've set the scene, and even for those who have not had the privilege of studying the book of Shmuel, I highly recommend that you open up Shmuel 1 and learn, or just read through, in translation, chapters 19 until 21, and then you'll understand better the course of events. So at this point, this is really after the first major altercation between Shaul and David, which really wasn't any altercation. It was just Shaul had a fit upon him, and he tried to kill David by throwing his spear at him in a sudden fit of rage. David ran home, and by the time he gets home and is consolidating himself, already the guards of Shaul have tracked him to his house, and it's clear he cannot leave the house, and if he goes down into the street, he'll be killed or dragged off to the palace to be killed. And so he has no choice but to stay in the house and pray and pray and wait for his release. Now, in terms of our personal divine service, right, we are not in the house that's being patrolled by the men of Shaul. Nevertheless, the feeling of being beset, I am beset upon. Al tashchet, I don't want to harm and I don't want to be harmed. And it's overnight. You know, all of these events are taking place over the night because they're waiting for the dawn. They're waiting for the morning, these guards of Shaul, to take him away. So it's this kind of vigil through the night. And so the prayer place of Lamnatseach, of Nitzuach, is this outpouring. Shifchi kamayim libech nochach pnei Hashem. This kind of outpouring of all of the worry and all of the fear and all of the need out to Hashem in the place of trouble and in the time of trouble, and without necessarily seeing a solution. There's no obvious solution here. We have to be patient and wait for the solution to present itself. Lamnatzeach al tashchet leDavid. So this is a nitzuach. It's a prayer flow that is an appeal to the one who grants victory because we're in trouble, and we need help so that we can be victorious, not only in the interim but also for the long term. Right? That's all that Lamnatzeach. Al tashchet. I don't want to be harmed. I don't want to cause harm. LeDavid, michtam. It's a michtam, and we did speak about michtam already because we had michtam last time. The michtam is the fine and refined message that is like a chotem with a chet, that it should be sealed and made permanent, and it leaves a permanent mark because it's such a fine and refined message. Michtam b'shloch Shaul v'yishmo et habayit lamito. When did all of this get expressed by David? At the time when Shaul had sent guards to the house of David, v'yishmo et habayit lahamito. They were guarding his house, not just guarding his house, but what? Lahamito, in order to kill him. Now, they were guarding the house in order to kill him. Why? Because they have to wait for the morning to be able to ambush him and take him out back to the palace to be killed. Now, the thing that we have to bear in mind is that in terms of halakha, the king Shaul had no justification according to the halakha for killing David. But a king can kill whomever he wants. Is that true or is that not true? So one of the things that we're going to return to again and again, the Dat Sofrim explains, is that one of the elements of David's prayer is, a Jewish king is supposed to be doing things differently than Shaul is doing them. And if he was a non-Jewish king, it would be one thing. But he's not. He's a Jewish king. A non-Jewish king in those years had absolute power to do absolutely anything that he desired. Off with his head. Okay, off with his head. And the Jewish kingship is not really built that way. There are rules and regulations, and there was always a system of checks and balances of power between the throne and the Sanhedrin and the rabbinic authority. And so we have what we'll call it the legal authority. So we have here, David will see that David is going to refer to this any number of times, how part of his prayer is, even if I'm undeserving of your protection, Hashem, even if I'm not fit for any kind of miraculous intervention, but nevertheless, is this the people? Is this the king that you anointed? Someone who will act, arbitrarily and send a contingent of guards to take me out and execute me summarily without any justification? Hatzileni mi oivai Elokai, save me from my enemies. my God. Mimitkomimai tisagveni. Uplift me above those, uplift me among those who stand up against me. Those are called mitkomimai. It's from the language of Kima. Now, the idea of tisagveni, we have two, very often we'll have the languages split, like we can see here. Hatzileni, its parallel is at the end of the verse, tisagveni. And oivai, I'm going to explain all the terms, so don't worry, and mitkomimai. What's the difference between all of these terms? Meaning, we have a kind of balance very often in Tehillim in the verses between, when there's, it's not just for poetic invention, God forbid, it's really in order to express different ideas in very significantly different ways. So, Hatzileni, when someone calls out Hatzileni, he means save me, rescue me. It's a physical rescue. And from whom does he need to be rescued? From his enemies, right? Now, in mitkomimai are not exactly enemies. They are the people who may not be coming out with they're not coming out with weapons against me. They may not be coming out in force against me. What they are mitkomimim. They are enemies because they stand up and they're anashim chatzufim. They're bold and brazen people who are out to get me. On the social level, they're out to denounce me, or they have they're trying to take me down. Those are the mitkomimim. Tisagveni, against such people, I don't necessarily need hatzalah. Ribono shel olam, Hashem, I don't necessarily need to be saved from them physically, like I do from my oivim. From the oyev, you need physical salvation. From the mitkomem, what you really need is exaltation. Uplift me over them. That means to say, make me higher than them, or allow me to transcend them. That's the second thing. Hatzileni mipoale aven, umeanshe damim hoshieni. You see, we have the same, again, that same split in the verse between different types of enemies. In this case, again, salvation, physical salvation, is necessary for people who are poale aven. Poale aven are people who do acts of iniquity. Now, aven is an interesting word. Aven is from the language of on, which means power. So the poale aven are people who have power in their hands, and they are misusing or corrupting their power in order to carry out ends that are not justified or that are not right. So from such people, because they have power at their hands, it means physical, temporal power, I also need to be saved. Hatzileni, hatzalah is like, I need an ogen hatzalah. I need actual physical rescue from such people because they have power at their disposal and they can harm me. Now, anshe damim, this is even worse, because the question is, these men who have come to surround David and ambush him in his home, and they are his, probably most likely, they're supposed to be his executioners. Are they just functionaries? What are they? And so if they're just functionaries, so there's no personal animosity there. So perhaps you can talk reasonably to them, or perhaps there's a way out through some other means, or perhaps you can pay them off. You could find some other way through which it's possible to kind of, maybe there's some other option. But David HaMelech, he says, no, these are people who are anshe damim. These are people who are bloodthirsty. They are people of blood. That means to say they are in positions of power that have been corrupted, and in addition, they enjoy the work that they do. Because of that, I am really in trouble. Meaning I don't have recourse and I don't have an out. These are not people who are just doing their job. Maybe I could appeal to their reason. Maybe I could appeal to some kind of higher moral capacity within them. No. And in that case, I don't just need tisagveni. I need hoshieni. Hashem, I am in trouble. Please, you're going to have to save me. Hatzileni is like the person who's at sea and he needs someone to pull him out. Hoshieni is a whole different story. Hoshieni is the person who's not just in the ocean, the Coast Guard, they're close enough they can come by and pluck him out. Hoshieni means he's far, far out in the middle of the sea. He fell off board and there's nobody. He really needs some kind of bigger agency made available to him. Kihine, why? Here's the key, right? Why do I need this kind of help? Because arvu lenafshi. They have ambushed, or now arvu is past tense, so it's important to realize that he's implying here They are not arev, they lo arevim lenafshi. It doesn't mean that right now only are they out to get me and trying to ambush me, but rather arvu. This is not the first time that I've been in a position where Shaul has sent functionaries to kind of get on my case and ambush me. So it's a chronic. We have a chronic problem here. It's not just a one-time thing. Arvu lenafshi. Now, nafshi can mean plain and simple, my life. My life is in danger. But the further implication, instead of just using chayai, right? David could have said, arvu lechayai. They are out to get my life. But it doesn't say that. It says nafshi. Now, when David HaMelech uses the term nafshi, the further implication is he is talking about his soul. It means I have a spiritual quality within me that's unique and important and needs to exert itself in the world, to be revealed in the world. And that's the thing that they're trying to suppress. Meaning, it's not just that I'm in danger because they are out to get me physically. What's worse, Hashem, is that they are orev lenafshi, my unique contribution that I can bring to your world. It's under threat. The whole project is under threat. Yaguru alai azim. These are people, and the word uzi is going to come up later on, that oz there is important to us. Yaguru alai azim. These people are yaguru. Now, yaguru can mean that they are around my dwelling place, right? Makom migurim is the dwelling place. But yaguru really means agor in Hebrew means to gather something together. So we have this the implication is here they're coalescing. It's like they join together, all of these individuals, and they've joined together and they're bold and they have there's no restraint. They don't restrain themselves. Lo fish'i v'lo chatati Hashem. Now, when it says here the name Yudke Vavke, right? So far, the name of God that we have had, that we came in contact with, so far has been Elokai, right? Up here, Elokai, my God. And this word, this name of God, the word Elokim, really implies the attribute of justice. Now, here, David HaMelech says, Hine arvu lenafshi, agar alai azim, lo fish'i v'lo chatati. David HaMelech never, I can't say never, but almost never, does he say, I've checked my conscience is clear, I haven't done anything, and so the fact that I'm being visited with such troubles, like, I can't understand why it's, is this just? He almost never, ever comes into that kind of dialogue, so to speak, with Hashem. He doesn't go there because almost always he assumes, and he confesses that he's not a perfect person and that he does make mistakes and has made mistakes, and it's not on that basis that he's asking for divine intervention or for help. Now, when it comes to this pasuk, what he's telling us is, what he's saying to Hashem is, Lo fish'i v'lo chatati Hashem. Now, this name, Yud Kei Vav Kei, implies the attribute of kindness, of loving kindness. It means, Hashem, even if I've done things wrong, whatever I've done is not sufficient to justify the destruction that's about to take place at the hands of Shaul's men, because it means the extinguishing of the entire project of Mashiach. I mean, that's a big thing to squash out on the basis of what? So perhaps I've done things wrong in my life, but ad kedei kach, to such an extent that al tashchet, I shouldn't be utterly destroyed. Hashem, and here he makes an appeal to God's attribute of loving kindness. Bli avon. Okay, so we have here three different terms to talk about sin. We have pesha, chet, and avon. Now, the chet is an error that's made, I wouldn't say accidentally, but we'll say it's negligently. It's an error, and it was not done maliciously. And then we have the pesha. Then we have the avon. The avon is the sin that was done purposefully, but not rebelliously. And then we have pesha, which is the sin that was done rebelliously. So we have here lo fishi, lo chatati, and also bli avon, meaning whatever category of sin that I might have done, and he admits that he might have, but nevertheless, not to such an extent that it would justify the actions of such people who are so destructive. Yirutzun v'yikonanu, they are chasing, they hurry, and they are making preparations to kill me, Hashem. Ura, this is, we're going to have another term like this, like ura, which is hakitza. but it means like wake up. Hakitza, ura, likrati, ure'e. Ura likrati, wake up or arise, Hashem, to greet me or meet me. The idea of to greet me or to meet me is, here, one second, here. Likrati means to like meet me halfway, we would say, to come to my aid, but meet me halfway. Ure'e, and see. Now this is an interesting term because it's not like Hashem, it's not like the creator of the universe needs us to tell him to look and see. He sees everything, he knows everything, but of course the idea of Ure'e means look upon me with compassion, look upon me with interest, look upon me if I'm not a perfect person, then not for, or since I'm not a perfect person, then at least, if not for my own sake, at least for the good that could come from me. David HaMelech is talking about the project of Mashiach, the line of Mashiach, which is going to be coming from him, and his future as a king of the Jewish people, which he's already seen in Ruach HaKodesh, in his divine inspiration and his prophecy. He has already seen that he has a future waiting for him, which is necessary for the Jewish people for all time. And so that's what he has in front of his mind, meaning he goes very often, David HaMelech quickly goes what I call transpersonal in Tehillim. He jumps away from focusing on his own story personally, because he knows that this story, what's going on in his life, is not just about him. It's about things that are going to be, he's laying down, we'll say, laying down a pathway, laying down foundations, just like he built the foundations of the Beit HaMikdash, that are going to be necessary for the rest of time. And so very often he appeals to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's attention to the bigger picture that will be embodied through him, even if he's very self-effacing and says, I don't necessarily deserve it. I know that I make mistakes, and I have made mistakes, and I still make mistakes. Nevertheless, Ura likrati ure'e, Hashem, look at the bigger picture here that could come from me, the good I could do. V'ata, and as for you, right? And as for you, or and you, Hashem, Elokim, Tzvakot, Elokei Yisrael. Okay, so this is, we have here 5 Shemot, right? 1, 2, 3. It's really not, it's 4/5. Elokei Yisrael is one term, but it's 2 words. So we have here a whole pulling together of every attribute that we can possibly. David HaMelech is appealing to every divine attribute he can call upon. Hashem's attribute of loving kindness, his attribute of justice. Elokim tzvakot. Tzvakot means HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you are the master of legions. That means to say the one who organizes every let's say foot soldier in your army, on the spiritual plane, on the physical plane, on the human plane, on the animal plane. Everything is here to carry out your purpose, Hashem. That's called Elokei Tzvakot, or Tzvakot. So we say, Hashem, the legions of heavens and earth are at your disposal to carry out your will. So that's what I'm appealing to. It means to say you have absolute mastery over everything that exists. Elokei Yisrael. And that's the final appeal, right? You'd think that Hashem belongs at the end, because that's the name of loving kindness, but that's not where David is coming from. He says, really, who am I appealing to? Elokei Yisrael. You have plans and you have a mission for me in the context of the Jewish people, of the history, the future of the Jewish people, the security of the Jewish people in my time and also down the line. So Hashem, on that basis alone, you're the God of the Jewish people. Save me so that I can carry out my function within the Jewish people. Hakitza, here we have, remember I said we have this Ura, here's Hakitza. Wake up. Lifkod kol hagoyim. Lifkod kol hagoyim means to remember or take accounting of all of the nations. Al tachon kol bogdei oven sela. Now this idea of invoking the nations is two-pronged. The first is that David HaMelech, in his time, he has a purpose and a function to carry out on behalf of the Jewish people in its relations with the non-Jewish enemies that surround the Jewish people. So he says, Hakitza lifkod kol hagoyim. You're going to let me be destroyed, but I have a job to carry out vis-a-vis the goyim. There are non-Jewish nations that are enemies of the Jewish people that surround us and are mamash among us. The Plishtim are side by side with us. How are the Jewish people supposed to secure their future if I'm not going to be here to help them? But there's more than that. Lifkod kol hagoyim is also kind of a side jab at the fact that Shaul is not acting like a Jewish king should act, and he is kind of acting in this arbitrarily authoritarian way, which does not befit a Jewish king. He is not listening to the halacha. That's called kol hagoyim, means even those who are acting like goyim. It's a side, kind of like a side push at Shaul. Al tachon kol bogdei aven sela. Do not be compassionate upon those who betray and act in betrayal and do sins, sela. And the word sela it really only appears, in here in Tehillim. So sela is not just a main. It's not just an affirmation. It's like a main to the nth degree, to the 10th degree. So we have here, sela is from the language of sela. If it had an ayin at the end, it's like a stone, which means to say rock solid. It's a way of like closing off an idea and giving it permanence. So we say rock solid. And also the other two aspects of the word sela, which will come up in other points, so it's good to know it, is Rav Hirsch tells us it's sort of like sal. In Hebrew, sal is a basket, and a maslul is a path. So it's sort of like put that in your basket and go home with it. That's the implication of sela. It's like this is something that has to be emphasized as powerfully as possible. So instead of amen, it says sela. Yashuvu le'erev. And again, it's like we're looking at, whenever I say this, I just imagine David at the window, looking down, peeking through the curtain, and he sees them again, that team of guards from Shaul's house, surrounding taking another lap around his home. Yashuvu le'erev, they return at evening. Yehemu kalev, they bark like dogs. It means to say they're such lowly, vulgar people that have been sent to capture me, and they just make a mockery, and they're out in the street making a spectacle of themselves, and he just watches them pass under the window, and you can and they're howling and, oh David, we're getting you tomorrow, or whatever. Yehemu kalev v'yisovavu ir, and they circle the city. Now the idea of circling the city is like they're shomrim. Their job is to be guards in the city, and as they make their rounds, right? That's again Yeshuvu and Yesovavu. They keep making their rounds, and this group stays, and the other goes out to do a round in the city, and they keep switching mishmarot throughout the night. And David is standing there, peeking out through the curtain, and he sees them come again, and you can feel in his language, there they are again, making their, and his salvation has not yet come, and he's waiting at the window, waiting to see what will open up. They're such lowly people. Yabiyun bifihem. They're destructive people who are so without boundaries that they just talk about whatever they want, and they reveal all of their plans and all of the evil that's within them. It's just right there on the table. Charavot b'siftotehem. They have swords in their mouths. Kimishomea. They walk around, and it's like, oh, who hears us anyway? And they also, David HaMelech is pointing out, they don't have fear of heaven. Like they say, Kimishomea. We can say whatever they want. They don't believe in you, and that there's an accounting. Vata Hashem. As for you, Hashem, again, the absolute of God, Yudke Vavke, Tischak lamo, make mockery, laugh upon them, Til'ag lechol goyim, and he's calling them goyim, even though they're not. He says, look how they act. They don't act like Jews. These are the emissaries of the king. They should be holy people. They're so low and they're so vulgar. These are the people that you've sent to take me down. I'm your Mashuach. I am your anointed one. I have a job to do for you. You're going to let me be taken by such lowly people? Now, in terms of our own divine service, it's a very powerful idea, because when we're beset by the dogs, yes, by the barking dogs of the Yetzer, of the obstacles that we have to overcome, of our own lusts, desires, doubts, fears, negative thoughts, it's like, Vata Hashem tischak lamo, til'ag lechol goyim. This is the stuff that gets me crazy. This is the stuff that I have to overcome. Nafshi achazaka, Rabbi Nachman wrote a song, or it's not a melody but poetry, which he wrote to the soul to strengthen the soul. Nafshi achazaka. Maybe I'll sing it to you, I don't know. But it's like, my soul is so powerful and so precious. And these are the forces that could take me down. How could it be? How could it be, Hashem? Can't be, right? Uzo elecha eshmora. Uzo elecha eshmora. Are we back again and everyone's on? I don't know why the connection is so delicate today. Okay, so because we've had interruptions, I'm just going to keep. If anybody needs to quit, you can always catch up afterwards because it's being recorded. And I'm sorry for the interruptions. So Uzo, David HaMelech says, Uzo, while the power is his, he means while Shaul still has the power, Elecha eshmora. If right now I'm beset by my demons, if by now I'm beset by my enemies, so I can wait and I can be patient and wait for my opening. Remember, David is at the window and he's looking down and he hasn't seen an opening yet, but he knows it's coming and he has faith and he's pouring out his soul before Hashem. Please help me. I know you can. And he says, okay, but now the guards are in his hands and they're circling my house. I can't do anything yet. The power is still by him. That's called Uzo. Nevertheless, pause, Elecha eshmora. I will guard, I will keep faith with you, so to speak, Hashem, and just hold on and stand by, ki Elokim is gabi, because I have faith, I trust that your attribute of justice, that's Elokim, your attribute of justice will uplift me. You will pull me up and out of the situation that I'm in. Elokei chazdi. You see how here, Elokei, it's written chazdo, but it's read chazdi. God of my kindness. Now, when we have a distinction between the Kri and the Ketiv, the way it's read on the page and the way it's supposed to be said, which is usually marked inside of your Tehillim, it's for significant reasons why it says Chazdo and Chazdi. I'm not going to go into right now the distinction between the Kri and the Ketiv. We're just going to keep going because we don't have a lot of time. Eloki Chazdi is the way that we read it. It means to say, you are the God. Which one? No, that's at the end. Uzi elecha azamera, it repeats, but instead of eshmora, it's azamera, which is actually, like I said before, about the consonants that switch. So the shin and the zayin here are also it's good to point it out, that repeating phrase is also because what was before eshmora becomes azamera. Sha, sa, za, right, are all from the same, they're all from the same consonant root. So the Eshmora is transformed, meaning keeping faith with Hashem is transformed into Azamera, becomes singing to Hashem. Okay, but let's get there first, and then we'll see the connection. Elokei Chazdi, it's not read as Chazdo, it's read as Chazdi. Yikadmeni. That means I believe that he is full of chesed, and he will anticipate my needs. So David is standing again. Imagine him at the window, not seeing a way out yet. And he says, and nevertheless, I know and I'm sure he's going to present for me the opportunity that will save me in the right time. Elokim yar'eni b'shorai. God is going to show for me the straightforward path that I need to take. Al tahargem penishkachu ami. Now this is something that's very powerful. This is very much an echo of al tashchet. I don't want to destroy. I don't want to be destroyed. Here we have again the language of al tahargem. Don't kill them. Don't kill those people, meaning the people who are out to get me. I'm not looking to kill them. Why? Penishkachu ami. Lest my people forget. What does that have to do with anything? Well, we say the best way for David's legacy to be preserved is not that all of his enemies within the Jewish people be destroyed, but rather that they should be transformed. And in being transformed, the memory of how David, like, what's the perfect phrase David uses to describe this transformation? Even masu habonim hayta l'rosh pina. The stone that was rejected by the masons, by the stonemasons, became the cornerstone, the chief cornerstone, meaning the transformation that's possible between the one who was rejected and reviled and opposed, when his enemies embrace him. That's really what David HaMelech wants. I don't want them destroyed. I don't want them killed. I want them transformed, Hashem, so that the Jewish people, the memory of that shift between me being at the bottom and being under such duress, that it was possible for you to not just wipe out the enemy, but to actually transform the enemy. That's the bigger miracle. Penishkuchu hani'emo bechelcha. Now, hani'emo has two different implications. Chelcha means within your portion. That means within the land of Eretz Yisrael. Hani'emo. It can mean shake him out. It means to say make him wander. That means like Cain was made a wanderer, navanad. up, that he was wandering hither and yon, and that was part of his punishment. That means to say the person who divine providence forces into the position of having to move around a lot, tell his story over and over again, so that it gets across and that people know exactly what happened and what took them down and what made them change. So that's actually something that's very beneficial. Hani'emo bechilcha, shake them out and spread them out among your people in your land, and that's going to carry out the project much better. Horidemu maginenu Hashem. Horidemu means take them down out of power. They shouldn't be in their high places just because we said they're po'alei avin, right? They've had power. We don't want them to have power, Hashem, because they've been misusing and abusing it. So if they're taken down and then they have to spread the message of what made them change and how they were forced to retract, that's going to be the best thing. Chatat pimo, dvar sifatemo, the sins of his mouth, the words of his lips, right? They say words that are so, they don't believe in your justice. They don't believe that they're going to be accountable for their actions. And then they express this freely, and they talk without any feeling of, they have no limit and no boundaries on what they'll say. Yilachtu begonam. They should be entrapped by their pride, meaning the fact that they're so loose-lipped and they're so destructive in their speech, let that entrap them. Ume'ala umekachash yisaperu. In their ala and kachash, one of them is curses and the other is kachash, means lies. Yisaperu means to say, let people know of the deceptions, that's the kachash, and the misuse of speech, that's the ala, that they have engaged in. Yisaperu, let people talk about it and know about it. That would be the best thing. That's the way it's going to have the best impact on the future of the Jewish people. Not that my enemies are destroyed, but that they are transformed, and the mistakes that they made should be publicized. Kalei v'chema, kalei ve'enemo. Let them vanish in chema. Let them be destroyed or ended in chema. That means to say, it doesn't say destroy them. Kalei, it just means let them be destroyed, let them vanish and be destroyed, which is very passive language. Not only I don't want to do it, I am also not cursing them that you should do it. Just let it be, like, just they should be taken care of, ve'enemo, and just vanish and not be a factor anymore. V'yed'u, then people will know, ki Elokim moshel b'Yaakov. Now, when it says Elokim, it doesn't only mean God, it means God's attribute of justice. That means there is justice to be found, and that's ruling among Yaakov. Remember we said how David is really kind of invoking the idea that Shaul is acting as a high-handed king, which is outside of the framework of a Jewish king. And so in being this kind of, having adopted the model of the non-Jewish tyrant, that's something that's unacceptable for the Jewish people, and it's necessary for him to be taken down by whatever means necessary. That's not my business, but Hashem, he should be removed, and his legions should be removed from the equation, because the Jewish people need to know that Elokim is Moshel b'Yaakov, not only you as God, but that there's justice here, and that it shouldn't be, this lawlessness can't continue, and it should be known not only among Yaakov, but La'afsei ha'aretz. Selah, it means out to the ends of the world. It should be known that justice is to be found among the Jewish people, meaning it's not only an object lesson for the Jewish people themselves, but what a chilul Hashem, that our nations surrounding us, as if we go with a flag that we're so moral and we're so different from everybody else, and we follow the one God and all of the dictates of the Torah, and our king himself is acting in such an unjust way. That's impossible. It's a chilul Hashem among the non-Jewish nations, and it's a corruption among the Jewish people. V'yashuvu, and again here it's so hard, right? Again, we have this the same exact pasuk, and David HaMelech, I can just imagine him pacing back and forth in the Gag, in the Aliyat Gag, and then he goes again to the window after praying a few more minutes or a few more hours, and he goes back to the window and he looks down again, and there they are doing another sivuv. Yashuvu le'erev, they return at evening. Yehemu chakalev, they bark like dogs. V'yisovu ir, and they make their circle around the city. So again, he's still in the thick of it. Hema yenion le'achol, they go circle around in the city to go get something to eat. And he's watching them. This is like an observation. Like they broke into two contingents, and one of them went out into the city, one contingent, to go get food for the guards who are on duty. And so they bring back however many portions, and there's not enough to go around. And so they go out, a whole contingent of them goes out to go pick up a meal for the guards. They come back, and if there's not enough to go around, yalinu, they start to complain. They go into conflict. This is the antithesis. David HaMelech is bringing this as an example, a counterexample. This is not the Jewish fighting force or the shomrim of the Jewish people. It's like the shomrim of the Jewish people. What should they be? That if a portion is brought back and there's 10 men and they only have enough for 8, so what will they do? Each one will take off part of his portion to be able that everyone should have an equal portion. That's what we call the Jewish value in among the armed force of the Jewish people. And he says these people are not like that. Their king is not okay, and because of that it trickles down, and they are not okay. And I can see it. I'm looking out my window, and Ribono Shel Olam, here's the closest example. I have such a clear example that the people who are besetting me are so worthy. They're not worthy of they're not worthy of the position that they're in. Va'ani, and as for me, and this is David HaMelech at his best, right? Is that he hasn't come to resolution yet, and he's still in the middle of the problem. And says, "Vani ashir uzecha." He says, but as for me, ashir uzecha, like I am singing praises of your power, Hashem. Aranein laboker chazdecha, and it's like he's looking out the window again. I imagine looking out the window, and it's starting to be like the sky is starting to lighten, and he knows that they're just waiting for the morning to pull him out of that house. Wait until he goes out to go to pray, wherever he's going to go. Eventually they're going to catch him, and they're going to take him out for execution. So it's like the dawn is coming over the horizon. And David HaMelech says, Aranein laboker chazdecha, tomorrow morning, meaning in just a few hours or just a few minutes, Aranein laboker, I'm going to be singing songs praising your loving kindness, Hashem. Meaning, and they're waiting downstairs for him to step out to go to the mikveh before davening, and they're just waiting there to pull him off to be executed. And he says, no, I know, Hashem. Come morning time, I'm going to be singing your praises. And for all we know, morning is only 10 minutes away, and he still has total faith that he's going to be saved from his distress. Ki hayita mizgavli. You see how it's already past tense. Hayita, it doesn't only mean that in the past you've already been mizgavli, you've already been the one who has uplifted me or exalted me. He means I'm already anticipating that in a few hours or half an hour and 10 minutes from now, something is going to happen that's going to save me. You will send me my solution, and I will be looking back at this point now and say, you already have uplifted me, right? Hayita mizgavli, umanos, and a refuge or an escape on the day of my distress. And by the way, how did he get out? I'll tell you in a second. We'll finish off. Uzi elecha zameira, and that's what someone pointed out before. Rachel Moore pointed out that this is a repetition of ani uzi elecha eshmora. So we have here now azameira, your power, uzi, not uzo, but uzi. My power, it means to say the way in which you have empowered me, Elecha Azamera, now I'm going to be singing to you. Ki Elokim Mizgabi, for the God of justice has uplifted me, Elokei Chasti, and this is the same God of loving kindness. There's no distinction between the two of them. Now, we have finished the chapter, but I just want to tell you quickly, if you don't know Sefer Shmuel, how it resolved. It says, could Bechelcha, Hanem Bechelcha, could it also make them feel na'im? Okay, so that I said that was a second way to understand hani'emo. Now we could look at it that way, but it's a little bit difficult because afterwards we have yoridemo and kale v'chema kale. So it's a little bit hard, even though na'im, the root na'im, can be understood to mean pleasant. It's a little bit difficult to put it that way because we see that David HaMelech is not really anticipating such a pleasant as end for them. Nevertheless. If we want to understand that way, certainly the shorish is there. It's just a little bit harder to reconcile with the rest of the pasuk and the next pasuk. Now, I just want to tell you the end of the story. So the guards came to the house, and they came to Michal, and they said, call David out because the king wants him. And she said, he's upstairs in bed and he's not well. I can't move him. So so they said, so they didn't know what to do, right? Now that's interesting. They didn't know what to do. So I remember I said at the beginning, well, why shouldn't they know what to do? Meaning, what kind of choices? They were given opportunities to take him. They could have just gone upstairs, taken him out, and dragged him out to the palace. No, they weren't sure what to do because Shaul had told them to go to the house and try and get him out of the house, and if not, then to wait. So what are they supposed to do? They're not sure. They go back to the palace, and this is another thing, a very strange choice to make. They go out to the palace, the entirety of the contingent, and they don't leave a guard. They don't leave guards there enough to guard all of the exits and entries of the house, or any guards at all. So they all go back to go consult with Shaul. What should they do? They tell him, your daughter says that he's in bed in the Aliyat Gag, he can't come down. So Shaul is infuriated, and he says, what are you talking about? Go back, take him out from the bed if you have to, or schlep the whole bed and bring the whole thing here. I want him here. They go back. In the interim, Michal lets David down by a rope. She lets him out the window, and he escapes. And she sets up a dummy in the bed, and covers his head and everything, and makes it look like there's a body in the bed. And so they come in, and they come back to the house, and they say, where's David? And she says, well, he's in bed, I told you. And they said, well, we don't believe you, we're supposed to check. So she said, fine, come look and see. They look and see, they see the body, they go out and they spend the rest of the night making circles around the house, whereas David is already absconded. He's already gone, and that's how he managed to get out. That's how he managed to make his way away. So the recordings are on the course page. So you just go back to the course page for breslovcampus.org or whatever it is, and that's where you'll find the last 2 weeks of classes. Okay, so Bezrat Hashem, for this part of the course, we have one more week. I think we're supposed to be doing 7 weeks this time around. So we have one more week, and then we're going to take a break. I'm not exactly sure what the dates are going to be. We take a break, and then we'll pick up again to finish out the rest of Tikkun HaKlali. Okay, have a good week.